Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this Wednesday. Greg Anthony here, and let me wrap up what I was talking about the last 2 days regarding Michelle Obama and Barack Obama perhaps being the first gay couple and first transgender first lady in our history, well, at least that we know of. And then we got into the strange story of Joan Rivers, who told everybody that in a small interview as she was entering her doctor's office. 6 months later, she died in an operation. They said it was a very standard operation. And then they had a funeral for her. And then there'd been a lawsuit filed on malpractice against the doctor. But then again, how crazy, we lived in maybe a rigged reality world. Somebody uncovered her perhaps alive 3 months after she said she was killed. And go to that video. You can find it. Just Google Joan Rivers alive. So, it's kind of crazy when you start looking at this. And I traced all of this kind of immorality going on all over the place through Hollywood, then through Pizzagate in Washington. And this is nothing new because we had discussed serious stories years ago regarding pedophile rings in the 70s and 80s with Cardinal Spellman in New York and high-level officials. And the problem being is it's worse today. So let's leave it at that. You go and Google all those stories. You're going to find a lot of stories on the subjects I mentioned. Hollywood decadence, Michelle Obama being a man. One thing that you're going to find interesting, there's a short clip, and I won't play it. You can find it. And Obama he's giving some speech somewhere, and he refers to Michelle as Michael. Then somebody said, so he figured that out. Whether it was a slip of the tongue, I doubt it. Does he tell us? Really? He could probably say, I just made a mistake. And everybody will believe that. And then regarding his birther story, where people say he wasn't even born here, he's quoted as saying, I'm the first president coming from Kenya. Now, he can probably interpret that and said, well, he meant my family came from Kenya. That'd be, for example, if I became president, I would say, well, I'm one of the few presidents that came from Poland. Well, my family came from Poland, so anyway, does that mean I was born in Poland? Obviously, he can talk his way out of that one. And the whole gist of the stories I've been talking about the last 2 days don't revolve so much on these facts, but how people interpret these facts. And are they facts or are they fiction? So there's a lot of things going on. And depending on how you've researched subjects, like the one we're going to talk about today, the Jesuit Order and Skull and Bones, where all of this stuff may come from. We're going to call on Anthony Sutton, who gave an interview back in 2016. No, wait, this was published on 2016. He gave this interview long before that, because I believe he died in 2002. But he talks a lot about Skull and Bones. So we're going to listen to that. But before I do, the important thing is how people interpret things. For example, let's just use the Obama story. Let's make it easy, the birther story. Was he born in America, or was he born in Kenya or someplace else? Now, if you are, I always use a sliding scale, let's say 1 to 10. If you're number 1 on the truth test, let's just call it that, you're going to hear any kind of accusations that he was born in another country as crazy, because the president has to be born in this country to ever have a chance to become president, and that could never happen in America. Now, if you're number 5 on this sliding scale, looking for the truth, 10 being, wow, you're really researching, you're going to go, well, there's a good possibility. Let's figure it out and look deeper. Who's really presented the evidence? Well, Sheriff Joseph Opayu from Arizona, mainstream guy, had investigators and all that kind of stuff, and he presents some great evidence. Now, it's also important to know that he was hounded by the FBI, and he was charged with crimes. And this was during this, so was that retaliation? So if you're on 5, you're going to give him, you're going to go, maybe not, but it couldn't be. Now, if you're number 9 or 10 on that truth list, that sliding scale, you're going to really weigh these facts and go, yes, there's a likelihood this is not the case, that Obama was never born here. Okay, so, and just use that throughout everything. When people hear, Joan Rivers said Michelle was a tranny, same kind of evaluation, same kind of thing, and put yourself in there, and where do you fall? You can do that with many different things. Do you think the Vatican-led New World Order, the Vatican is involved in all of this political treachery? Do you think the Jesuits are assassins? Do you understand their history? So when you say these things, you're going to get a lot of different responses, and I think it depends on the person and how deeply they've looked into issues during their entire life and whether they've just stopped. Now, there's a whole new category of people we haven't talked about, and that's the gatekeepers. So, we did talk about them. That's the people that know what we're talking about here. Know, for example, many of the things we say here are true regarding the Vatican. They're there to make you people disbelieve that. They're there to block. They're there to gatekeep, to block you from any kind of truth. But they disguise themselves as truth seekers. So see, it gets complicated. Complicato, right? Well, anyway, let's get to Anthony Sutton. I've done enough talking today in the last few days. And I wanted to do this because there's a lot written. He's written some really interesting things. And he was, his name was Anthony Cyril Sutton, born in 1925. Yes, he died in 2002. He was a British-born economist and historian and writer. Most importantly, he was a very respectable and intelligent man who obviously wanted to expose facts that perhaps would make this world a better place. Let's see what he has to say about the Jesuit Order of Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death. And that's a good way to put it. Here we go. And this interview was published on March 26, 2016. And isn't it interesting? It only has 1,000 views. Let me see, is that correct? Let me see if that's right. Maybe more. I got to check this. I got to check this out. Maybe more. Let's get it down here. 1,012 views. I mean, you can go to some stupid things on the internet and get God knows how many views, millions, on the craziest things. One subject, and let me get off on the tangent here. It's fun to do. I like to figure out what kind of earth we live on. You know that about me. I not that it matters. If I kept walking for the rest of my life, the world would be a flat place unless I ran into mountains and valleys and things like that. But looking at the broader picture, I like to think how much have we really been lied to about? We get upset when the local city council member lies to us, but when you have the top people in the world, supposedly, the popes, the heads of the Protestant faith, so to speak, and all these Episcopalians, and then we go to the Buddhists, the Hindus, and then we go to the Muslims, you name it. Then you get to politicians from all major countries, and when you start understanding how deeply they're lying to us, pretty soon you start going, boy, I ain't going to believe a word they say. And the greatest lie maybe be, one of the most interesting ones, although one wouldn't change your life, would it? It may enlighten you to the fact that, they've been really putting one over on you. And it kind of makes me laugh when I think about it. God, how many people in the world really realize they may not live on a round or a spherical earth? And it may not be moving. There may not even be space. And every time, like now, isn't this crazy that Trump, he wants to start a new branch of the military called the Space Force. Not the Air Force, the Space Force. And they already got uniforms and slogans. And they want to patrol outer space. I want the head job. I want to be in that. I'm going to join up for the Space Force because there is no space, maybe. Wouldn't that be the greatest job next to being a meteorologist? Because you're never wrong. That's why I always wanted to be one. Even though you're wrong, like you say, well, tomorrow it is going to be beautiful, not 80 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. So everybody gets their golf clubs and they go out golfing, and the next thing you know, you got a big, huge thunderstorm, and you go, damn that meteorologist. The next day he gets on, he says, Mother Nature can be unpredictable, and you forgive him. Greatest job in the world. And you can keep your job. Even if you're wrong. How many times? I bet you, even if you're wrong 75% of the time, you can still keep your job. Maybe you live in a place where Mother Nature isn't unpredictable. Or maybe you can't be a meteorologist and admit that weather control is there. You can maybe say it is, and it's done for a good purpose, but you can't say that weather has been weaponized. You'd lose your job. So that's the bad part about being a weatherman. Unless you become the apocalyptic weatherman who's on the internet. So he's found himself a little niche. I don't know if he's a real live meteorologist, but I like it, apocalyptical weatherman. So there you have it. So here we go. We talk about the Space Force. And I thought, my goodness, what a great job. Let's say the space doesn't even exist. So you're patrolling areas, you're just like playing this video game, patrolling all these places that don't even exist. And wouldn't that be great? But it wouldn't surprise me that they put this one over on us, because if space doesn't exist, what the hell's NASA doing? Well, playing with computer-generated images and figuring out how can we fool these people. And ask yourself this question. All these astronauts, they're all Freemasons. Why do they train in Russia? There's a little town outside of Moscow where all these astronauts go, and I bet that's where, there's supposed to be these astronauts that are on the space station for a year. When you start going into that story, oh my God, craziness. I mean, it's impossible. Now, some people think that they go to this city and there's a little thing where all the countries have agreed. They fight tooth and nail, but they agree upon this little city, so all the astronauts go. And they say that the astronauts that may be on the space station, they say, actually go there and hide out for a year because, things are a little tighter in Moscow. It wouldn't be easy to hide out a mile out of Las Vegas, right? And they probably figured too many snoops around Area 51, so we can't go there. So they go there, they supposedly train, and isn't it interesting, they train underwater. It's the weightlessness effect if you ever scuba dived. And scuba dive as much as I have over the years. It's a weightless feeling down there, and you kind of move. I remember going down 30 feet, and I'd be walking, with your fins, and, boom, boom, and it's very difficult to move. Well, they actually train in water, and if you really like to research how NASA has buffaloed you with these, with all of this stuff, including going to the moon, you got to see some of their errors, where you can actually, they say these guys are somewhere in space working on the space station, but you can actually see bubbles, and you can actually and occasionally see they didn't hide the scuba tank. Now, what the hell's that doing up there? And secondly, if you've ever looked at that space station, it looks like some kind of toy you'd buy at Toys R Us when Toys R Us was actually in business. I guess they're out of business. But it looks like a Toys R Us space station. And why do they have to go outside and do repairs? Now, if I was going to build a space station in space, I would make it everything inside that you really need. But I think what they do is they want to put on a show, because then they show, well, now astronaut Jack is out there putting in the lug nut on the reciprocator to clean the bathroom. And that's another question. When you see how they don't wash, they supposedly, how do they live up there if they can't take a shower? And they throw their clothes away, they say. Oh, boy, there's so many crazy things when you start really looking at this. But let's take that story and put you on the truth scale. 1, you believe everything the government, and not everything, but you believe in, the red, white, and blue and everything the government says. You will believe them over anybody. You'll say, that's impossible. How could we spend $90 billion a year on NASA and they would lie to us like that? These people that say that are crazy. That's number 1. So you're right down on that level. And I give you a number 1 because you haven't done much thinking. So now slide yourself up to 5 on the truth scale, and you start thinking, holy shit, look at that. They couldn't have gone to the moon. But this thing about the flat earth, forget about that. This earth is round. It can't be. No, they wouldn't do that. I could see where they may lie to us about the moon, and Stanley Kubrick may have done that, and look at all that stuff. But, I'm just going to have to wait and see for more information. And usually out of 5, people don't go any further. And they will believe the government anyway. Now slide yourself to 8, 9, 10. Oh boy. You're going, holy mackerel. How come nobody says that anymore? Holy mackerel. Look at this. The earth can't be flat or round. Or is it? But boy, I'm going to research all this stuff. I know we didn't go to the moon now. I know NASA's BSing us. I know they're taking $92 billion a year and they're playing with computers. And then they send the astronauts to Russia to train, and they never go up in space because there isn't a space. Maybe. Good chance there's not. And plus, now they want to start a space force. Holy mackerel. What have we got going here? And so, just when you get to be 8, 9, and 10 on the true scale, that's when your research just begins. It's kind of like when you, let me see, I was thinking about selling salesmen, people who sell things, yachts, houses. When they make a sale, let's say they sell a $200,000 yacht or house to someone, right? They sell that thing and they get that check and they forget about it, all right? They forget about that guy. They notch him on the belt, forget. That's, a smart guy, like a smart truth seeker, when he gets to 8, 9, or 10, will keep researching. Because that's the beginning when you start realizing these things if you're 8, 9, and 10. And the analogy is pretty simple. If you are in sales and you just sold something, they trust you, right? They really spent their good hard-earned money, $200,000 with you. That's the beginning. That's the relation. You contact them again. You talk with them. You want to know, hey, how's things going? Are you happy with things? Then they're going to refer other people to you. And you're going to make more money and be happier. Because the sale just begins after the sale. And that's the same thing when you reach a level in truth-seeking and you think wow, I can't believe a word the government says. You've got to start researching even more. And then you start really going crazy because you've seen, wow, they not only do this, okay, let's use Michelle Obama. She may not only be a transgender, and Joan Rivers slipped when, saying that, and then died in a routine surgery 6 months later. But there's a chance she didn't die, that she faked her death. And people go, well, why would she fake her death? because her controllers told her to. They said, "That's it, Joan. You've served your purpose for us. Enough of this transgender talk." And there's a couple videos out there, and they were from kind of these tabloid Hollywood stuff that really looked like they've caught Joan Rivers alive 3 months after she said she died. So don't you understand that then the research just begins? And how many other times have they done this? Could it be, remember we started this whole 3 days ago talking about Alex Jones and how I used to have a radio show right after him years ago when the internet was just getting started, and did a lot of research on Alex, and come to a conclusion there's a very good possibility he's a COINTEL operator, a gatekeeper. And secondly, he may not even be Alex Jones. He may be Bill Hicks reincarnated. And did you know, if you do research, go back to the 90s, there was an Alex Jones prior to Alex Jones. Right. This guy, if there's only a couple videos on him left, and I don't know if they've taken him down, but he was not Alex Jones, but his name was Alex Jones. And he was there prior to the now Alex Jones that we have. But if you look at the video and you see him talking, his looks and his everything, he was not Alex Jones that we know today. And he disappeared, and maybe he wasn't good enough. See, they needed a showman like Bill Hicks, the comedian, and Bill Hicks, if you watch some of his comedy routines before they said he died, he was, very good. They needed somebody. So this other Alex Jones maybe disappeared because he wasn't entertaining enough, and they slid this new Alex Jones in there who happened to be Bill Hicks. Now, again, when you realize Alex Jones is a gatekeeper, or possibly there's a good chance if you put all the facts together with other stuff, then you keep going. You're just starting your research. And to this day, years later, you're still going to have a lot of circumstantial evidence. And guess what? Alex Jones comes on all the time still. He's got a huge following on InfoWars, makes a lot of money. And even my dogs believe he's Alex Jones. And what I say is crazy. You see, they told me. They said, "Greg, you're crazy. He's Alex Jones." I don't know what you're talking about. You just don't like him because he makes more money than you. And your radio show didn't go anywhere, and his went to the moon. Well, there isn't a moon. See what I mean? But anyway, the dogs are very upset about this, and I'm going to have to keep them... Hey, enough. Enough. I think they like just getting on the air for some reason. These guys, they're like the Hollywood dogs, They know when I'm on, and they go, "Okay, it's time to talk." And they're telling me now they want their own dog show. Can you believe that? All right, enough. You can't get your own dog show yet. Okay. They said, okay, they'll wait. They want to do auditions just like everybody else, right? But anyway, so think about that. Think about, I'm going to get to Anthony Sutton in the next half hour. We're just about out of time here. But I think that was, we're extending the last two shows I did to this half hour. Now we're going to switch over and talk about the Jesuits and the Secret Order of Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death, as stated by some. And we're going to get to that in the second half hour. But before you go, don't forget to go to my website, greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. You can also hit Arctic Beacon, and that'll take you there. That used to be the name of my old website. And don't forget, hit that donate button. We're listener supported, and it would be greatly appreciated. So come back for the next half hour on the Investigative Journal here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Yes, First Amendment Radio. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and I promise to get to this Anthony Sutton interview that he did before he passed away in 2002. It was first published in 2016, at least here on this YouTube. And Anthony Sutton, it's titled The Jesuit Order of Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death. Anthony Sutton, like I said, was British-born, economist, historian, and writer. He was a respectable and intelligent man who obviously, at least to the best of my knowledge, wanted the best for mankind by exposing facts that others would rather keep hidden. Let's listen to Anthony Sutton.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. The Order is truly a secret society. It was founded in the United States at Yale University in 1833. It has continued and exists down to the present day. Each year, the Order takes in 15 men, senior once has it been less than 15. In 1946, they took in, I think, 10 rather than 15 members. So what we have is a secret society which, over the last 150 years, has accumulated about 2,500 members, of whom perhaps 500 are alive today. Of this 500, perhaps 100 are actively in pursuit of the objectives of the order. It's not another college fraternal society. Yale University is the only university in the United States, or indeed the world, which has senior societies. These are societies where the 15 are selected in the junior year and actually are initiated at the beginning of the senior year. They stay on campus only 1 year as members. They are called knights. When they graduate, they leave the university, they go out into the world, then they're known as patriarchs. So at any one time, you only have 15 knights in existence, and for the rest of their lives, they're known as patriarchs, and they work during their lifetime, or a number do, towards the ends of the order. They are pretty much guaranteed success. Certainly they're guaranteed financial success. And in my reading of the material I have, I infer that so long as they go along with the purposes of the order, so long as they gear their careers and their lives towards certain ends, then they are guaranteed success. How did I come to this knowledge? Well, up to 6 months ago, I denied that there was a conspiracy, because frankly I couldn't prove one. I suspected a conspiracy, but I couldn't prove there was one until 6 months ago. Well, a little before 6 months ago, I received the catalog, which is the membership list of the society, all the way back to 1833. And I received some of their internal documents, enough for me to put together the way they correspond with each other. Operations within the order, to some extent their problems, and to some extent their objectives.
Now this is the book, An Introduction to the Order, by Anthony C. Sutton. It has a skull and bones on the front and 322.
The 322 is an identification. The order has a temple on the Yale campus.
Temple?
A temple, yes. It's a building maybe this 50, 60 feet by 40 feet, maybe 40 feet high. There's no windows, 2 big steel doors. We know what the temple looks like because back in 1880s, a number of Yale students became a little unhappy about what was going on inside this temple. When they went by it at midnight, sometimes they heard strange noises and all kinds of rumors on the Yale campus as to what this might be. There was a break-in. I call it the Yale Gate. There was a break-in to the temple, and the students who broke in cataloged what they found, and they made a drawing, a design of the interior of the temple. And 3 of the rooms are numbered. One is 322, one is 323, and one is 324. 322 is also, I suspect, the chapter number. And also in correspondence between members, they conclude their correspondence where you and I would conclude yours truly or yours sincerely. They conclude yours in 322. Why 322? There are several theories for this. One is that the order originated with Demosthenes the Greek in 322 BC. That's one theory. Another one is that it stems from the founding date in the United States, which was 1832. So really we have the last 2 numbers, 32, the second chapter founded in 1832. The skull and crossbones are prominent in the ceremonies, initiation ceremonies.
This is a symbol of death. Now why would they take a symbol of death?
Yes, from what I understand, when a new member is initiated, that would be in the senior year at Yale, he's placed within a coffin.
Oh, my.
And now we only know this from the Yalegate papers. These I call it Yalegate. And from the photographs we have of members inside the temple, many of these photographs are the 15 sitting around a table, and they have this skull and the crossbones sitting on the table in front of them. It is the symbol of death, and it has been called the Brotherhood of Death, and I think it probably more adequately should be called the Brotherhood of Death. So what I've had to do is look at the history, the biographies of the leading members of the order, and reconstruct their career, and see if there's a common pattern in their careers. While doing that, I came across some interesting documents. Some members apparently are not too happy once they become involved with this after 10 or 20 years. One member in particular left a memorandum. He wrote it in 1932. It was buried away in his papers. I don't think anybody found it before I did. And it was a 6-page memorandum on the order, naming some of the members, and said it was the most sordid thing ever happened in the history of man. So, but to come back to my point, I have to reconstruct the objectives. What are the objectives? In the words of one member, might is right. If you have the power, you use it to achieve your objectives. What is the objective? As you look at the histories of individual members, it can only be one thing: to acquire power, to keep power, to use power for their own purposes. That senior year selects the next group from the junior class. Within the order, each group of 15 are known as clubs. I call them cells because they're very close to the Jacobin cell, the revolutionary cells, but internally they refer to them as clubs. Each club has an identifying number. For example, Averell Harriman is a very influential member of the order, the son of Edward Harriman, the railroad magnate. Harriman was initiated in 1913. His club number is D111. All the other 14 of D111 have died off. Averell Harriman is the only one left. To come to the other part of your question, who are some of the significant members? Today, 2 men stand out. One is Averell Harriman, who is the chief financial angel of the Democratic Party. The other is Vice President George Herbert Walker Bush. The Bush family is quite prominent within the order. Now, if you go back in history a little, you'll find that George Bush's father, Prescott Sheldon Bush, was also a member of the order. He was a member of Brown Brothers Harriman, which is the Harriman private banking company. So today you've got 2 men who are supposedly in politics in opposition, Bush and Harriman. Actually, they're members of the same secret society. And Bush's father was not only a member, he was a partner in what was then Harriman and Company, which later became Brown Brothers Harriman. So behind the scenes, and this is something you don't see until you investigate it, people who appear to be in opposition politically or financially or industrially or in many ways are working together. Other members might be William Buckley. Now, William Buckley became a member in 1949, but the preceding class to that was Bush, 1848. So you get Bush was amongst the 15 who selected Buckley, and Buckley's club, that 15, was the 15 that selected, for example, one of the new members for 50 was the Reverend Sloan Coffin Jr. The Reverend Sloan Coffin Jr. at Yale was at the core of the anti-Vietnamese war disturbances on Yale campus. This is typical. You'll find that men in the same society will take opposite positions in public. So you've got William Buckley, whom I call a House conservative, as a member, but so is a man, for example, called Edwin Burt, who has a string of communist affiliations, which is about that long. And we'll get into this later. The method they use is that of the Hegelian dialectic. Thesis played against antithesis leads to a synthesis. In other words, for Hegel, for history to make progress, you have to have conflict. And when you look at the key people in the order, you will find that they generate conflict. So Bush and Harriman politically are conflicting. Coffin and Buckley, although part of the same order, are in public conflicting with one another because conflict leads to the new synthesis. Other prominent members, one of the most prominent was Howard William Taft, the only man to be both President and Chief Justice of the United States. The Taft family founded the order in the United States. There have been 8 members, 8 Taft family members within the order. Taft was probably the most prominent member around the turn of the century, 1910-1920. Stimson, who was Secretary of War under Taft, then Secretary of State under Hoover, Secretary of War under Roosevelt. In other words, at that level, politics disappears, and people often wonder, why does a Democrat join a Republican administration? If you check back, you find out there's not as a member of the order. So key people would be people like Taft, Stimson, Archibald MacLeish, who wrote the Constitution for UNESCO, also Librarian of Congress, the Bush family, the Walker family, and above all today, if there's a godfather in the order, it's Averell Harriman.
Exactly what causes does the order espouse, and why are these divergent to those of our founding fathers?
Well, the causes one can only deduce at this point from the operations of these men as individuals and working together. They want to acquire power above all.
Power
Political
to do what?
power. As you look at their actions, the political power is to bring about what they call a new world order, which is a one world. But they use the Hegelian techniques. We know enough about Hegel to know that not only does this mean the dialectic process, the creation of conflict, but it also means that individuals such as you and I, or anybody watching this program, will be cogs in the state, that we have no individual rights. Our rights for Hegel, individual rights for Hegel, come about through obedience to the state. We see it in the educational process, which we'll probably talk about later, that we have adopted what I call a Hegelian system of education, which is not to bring out your innate talents, but to prepare you to be an individual cog in the state.
Now, are you saying the members of the order believe this, and this is a part of their worldview?
I would say that there is a minority within the order that does believe it. There's one thing I've learned in looking at the papers, that they're not all active. Maybe at any one time only 20% are active. Undoubtedly, the 20% that are active have this goal. If you look at Taft's great work, although as a president he hasn't accounted for very much in the literature, Taft's great work was to bring about the World Court, international law. International law in the World Court will be essential in a new world order. If you take, for example, the career of Bush, Vice President Bush, when he was ambassador to the United Nations, he helped a process called Mondialization, which was a process by which an individual American city would adopt United Nations stature. In other words, it's a diminution, a dilution of U.S. sovereignty. So if you look at these individuals, Stimson is another very good example. Averell Harriman, certainly, in the way he's financed the Soviet Union, his work towards the build-up of the Soviet Union. If you look at these individuals and ask what is the common pattern is the creation of a one world.
Now, supposedly, these people believe that they are great benefactors of our society, the wise men, those who are specially endowed to rule, and who also believe that the best interests of America happen to be their own best interests as well.
I have never seen anything in the literature which leads me to believe that they have our individual rights in their hearts. What I do see in the literature and in the documents is a ruthless drive to acquire power for themselves and to help each other, because this is one of the tenets of the order, that if you have 3 men coming before you for a job, the preference absolutely goes to your brother in the order. This is in my book, The Order, Introduction to the Order. I call these chains of influence. And I trace one pattern where Stimson brought the McBundy family into the War Department. Then the McBundys go on and become key people both in the Department of Defense and in the Council on Foreign Relations. They help each other along the way. And when you get even a small number of men doing this, it can exert a very powerful force, a very powerful influence.
So the basic assumption is that because they know what is best for America, the way to preserve that is to amass power to see to it that the destiny they envision comes to pass.
My assessment is they're not thinking what is best for America, they're thinking what is best for the order.
What is best for the order
first.
Is what is best for America. In the first
in their eyes.
order.
Yes, in their eyes.
What's good for us has to be good for America, so we will remold America according to
the pattern.
That's right.
Yeah. It remains secret for 150 years because these people are under an oath not to talk about it. I understand that a member of the order may not remain in the room if it comes under discussion. Now, if I can elaborate on this a little bit, this poses a problem for Mr. Bush, because I write something called the Phoenix Letter, which is a monthly newsletter, and last November I began to open up. And a reader wrote to Mr. Bush and said, is what Mr. Sutton says, are you a member of this order? And the letter the reader got back was very interesting. It said, in effect, that the Vice President was not a member of a sordid secret society. That was not the question. The question was, are you a member of a secret society? The answer came back, he is not a member of a sordid secret society. He inserted the word, you see. This was a reader who doesn't give up, so he went back again. And I understand that, as it stands, as we are now, that Mr. Bush is not willing either to admit he is a member of the order or to deny it, because they're under this oath not to discuss it.
So when people look at the Council on Foreign Relations, in effect what they've been doing is looking at a kind of a veil which hides the order?
Yes. The core of my work came about almost by accident. If someone had not donated to me the membership list, we wouldn't be here today. It's remained secret because nobody has done that. Everybody's been looking at the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers. They are not truly conspiracies because the membership lists are open. The membership list of the order has not been open. So there's a distinction between the CFR and the Trilaterals and the order. CFR and Trilaterals are not conspiracies because they are not secret. They do what comes naturally. And this, of course, is very different argument to many people who've promoted conspiracy have made. They get across the idea that these people telephone each other and have little drawings and maps and diagrams. They don't operate like that at all. If you meet these people, they think alike. They talk alike. They come up with the same ideas simultaneously, and they move simultaneously. Know what they have to do.
So they're a breed.
They're a breed. Exactly.
Now, Tony, what has this breed done? What are their chief accomplishments in molding a domestic and foreign policy and actual events in American history since their founding at Yale?
One is they have acquired enormous political and financial power. You'll find representatives of the order in politics.
What have they done with this power? What has happened to America that would not have happened had they not been the order?
Creation of war and revolution.
Specifically, which ones?
The third book in this series, which I'm bringing out, takes two wars and one revolution. Well, two revolutions in one war. World War II, the Bolshevik Revolution, and the rise of Hitler, which I call a revolution in Germany. We can find the order behind the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. We can find behind the rise of Hitler. We can find in the maintenance of both of these systems, the transfer of technology to both.
Okay, I'm going to break in right there because in this particular video, in this particular interview, he doesn't make specific connections between the Jesuits. So I will do one here since he talked about the order having control of the Bolshevik Revolution. Well, we've done some research here, and we can tie Stalin's rise to power, possibly, and when you start researching this, you're going to get two stories again. But there's a Father Edmund Walsh, a Jesuit priest, who was considered the great educator, and started the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, which exists today and trains our top diplomats. Well, he was sent over in the guise of an aid package to the Bolsheviks for food from the Catholic Church and the United States. But the other side of the story is he was there with money to make sure that Lenin allowed Stalin into power of the Bolshevik Revolution, which changed the course of history. So there is a pretty solid Jesuit connection. Let's finish up here with Anthony Sutton. There's a lot more to this, but I'm only going to play another minute or so.
Already proven that Wall Street is behind the Bolshevik Revolution and the rise of Hitler. Now you're proving that the order is behind Wall Street.
Exactly.
Now who's the key figure in the order or figures that mold Wall Street?
In order of dominance, Averell Harriman, partner in Brown Brothers Harriman. Stanley of Morgan Stanley, used to be J.P. Morgan, then it became Morgan Stanley. Those two are the key.
Now what did the order want to accomplish in the Bolshevik Revolution?
You create opposing forces which you place in conflict. Out of conflict, you've got profit, you've got political power, and you can direct history. And if you look at the writings, for example, of the Trilateral Commission, they talk openly in the Trilateral Commission about managing conflicts, not solving conflicts, but managing conflicts. Conflict management, that's the cry.
So they got the profit, the power, and the management. Where did they want to steer history through the Bolshevik Revolution?
They wanted to set up, and they did, two opposing forces. Out of that came World War II. There were logical steps in the process. They used the same bank guarantee trust company as the conduit for the financing of Hitler, and also as a conduit for financing, and also the early days.
Okay, there we go. So we're all out of time with Anthony Sutton, and we'll get more. We'll do more with him in the future. But anyway, back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.